Picture this, you've got up, you've got your boots on, you've got your camera ready, you've left the house to do some street photography, and there's no one on the street. And you just end up wandering around for hours, not taking any photos, wondering how the other guys seem to always be in the right place at the right time. Like, really, it does make you wonder, how do street photographers always seem to find the most ridiculous, crazy things happening in the street? What are they doing that you aren't doing? And how can you get shots like that? Well, it turns out there are a few things that successful street photographers are doing that you might not be. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's not all luck and witchcraft. This is, unfortunately, a skill issue. But that's a good thing because it means that you can learn it. There's 3 key skills that you're going to need to work on if you want to get lucky more often with your street photography. It's fixing your eyes, fixing your feet, and fixing your brain. But before that, I want to show you these great new quick releases made by iFootage, the sponsor of today's video. If you've never used a quick release before, you might think it's not that big of a deal, but trust me on this one, it is so much better than fiddling around with tripod plates and screwing them in every time. You just drop your camera in and you're set. The C-Star Q38 series quick releases that iFootage just released are super. I've got them attached to literally everything I've got with a quarter 20 in it. There's an Arca standard plate, which is what my main tripod is, and then there's a bigger Manfrotto style plate that adapts to Arca. There's attachments for gimbals, including one for the notoriously incompatible RS3 Mini, and there's even an Arca plate adapter for action cameras, which is quite cute. Plates are nicely made from anodized aluminium, they click into place really confidently, and then you can lock the quick release button to avoid a very expensive accident. If you don't have a quick release system, do yourself a favor and pick one up using the link in the video description. Thank you to iFootage for supporting my channel. Let's start with your eyeballs. You ever lose your keys and you've looked everywhere for them and you just can't find them until you're so frustrated that you go and ask somebody for help. They walk into the room and in 10 seconds, they've already picked up your keys. Like without even needing to search, they're just like, boop, there they are. The reason you couldn't find your keys isn't because you weren't looking hard enough. It's because you were looking the wrong way. This also applies to street photography. You have to learn to see the world in a different way. Stephen Shaw calls it learning to see. Think about this. When you look at this, your brain recognizes the shape and size and color of it and says, coffee mug, which is useful most of the time because we can't stop and very closely inspect every single coffee mug we ever come across. But that's the process in your brain that you need to override. Instead of walking past people on the street and just going, people, you need to focus on each and every person and really think about them. What does this person have on today? Are they on the phone to somebody? Do they have really interesting shoes? What might their interests be? Who are they with? When you start to see individuals instead of just people on the street, you can start to see stories revealing themselves because you're seeing in a different way. This is like a real thing, and it's been studied a lot by people a lot smarter than me. It's called Thing Theory, and if you're interested, it's worth reading about. Okay, so you're looking harder now. Great, but you're still wandering all over town, seeing all the people, figuring out their stories, but you're still not coming up with these complex, interesting compositions that everyone else seems to. That's where part 2 comes into play, fixing your feet. And I do mean that literally, because they're probably pointing the wrong way. When you go out to do some street photography, you'll have a much higher chance of finding a great story if you're in a busy area. I think we all know that by now. But more than a busy area is a familiar area. I think it's an incredibly useful tool to have a preset route that you take every time you go out. It could be a 2-hour loop or a single street that you go up and down over and over again. Ideally, the less busy it is, the smaller, not larger, the area you want to cover is. But the aim of the game here is to help your eyes see by making the surroundings familiar and predictable. If you follow a particular route every time, you know where the extra good spots are, you know where the dead zones are, and you can shape your photography around that. Bonus for you, if you're in London, I'll give you my route. I used to start at Oxford Street, I'd walk down Regent Street, go through Piccadilly Circus, down Pall Mall, through Trafalgar Square, down to the Strand, down to Embankment, over the bridge, and all the way down the South Bank, and then all the way back again. Having that route cemented in your head doesn't just help by keeping things predictable and familiar, it also removes any decision making about where to go next, so that you can focus on spotting the story. Your walking about should be second nature. I mean, you've had a lot of years of practice. So it's important to try to keep all of your available brain power for the creative bit. Here's the fun part. Now that you've got a route to follow and you're looking more closely, you'll start to spot some interesting moments. You're gonna get excited, you're gonna snap a shot, you're gonna run home, load it up onto the computer, except you missed it because somebody on a bicycle went past at just the wrong time. Luckily, step 3, fixing your brain, is here to save the day. When you do spot an interesting story, a coincidence, or a little moment of connection, don't just take one shot and then run away. When you start to see these moments and you start to get your skill level of seeing and moving up, it's really hard to avoid FOMO because all of a sudden there's great pictures everywhere and you feel like you need to be so fast so you don't miss anything. There is honestly nothing worse than seeing a great shot, thinking you've got it, and then later realizing you didn't got it. Instead, take 5 shots or 10 shots. More than that, don't just start blasting away with the same frame. Make sure you're capturing the story, but then look at everything else. Who else is in the photo? Is there anything distracting in the background? How could you move around the scene to change your composition? Maybe you even take the camera away from your eye for a moment and look down the street and realize there's a poodle coming from that way, and you can include that in the photo to add even more interest. You can also think about how your subject is behaving. Are they moving somewhere? Are they going to cross the street to meet somebody? Maybe when they meet their friend across the street, there'll be something even more interesting to take photos of. Great street photography moments are rare, so take as much advantage of finding them as you can. Shoot as much as possible and get as creative as possible so that you can make the most of it. So now you've fixed your eyes, your brain, and your feet, but more importantly than all of that, in the nicest way possible, is to fix your expectations. You have to spend a lot of time on the street doing this day after day, week after week. I know that we talk a lot about the evils of Instagram creating unrealistic beauty standards, but it creates unrealistic artistic standards too. The reality is, most photographers are only posting their best work online and on Instagram, and from all of that best work, Instagram's algorithm is only showing you the best of that. Outside of Instagram, in the real world, most street photographers, even incredibly talented ones, are lucky if they get one photo they're really proud of in a month, let alone a day. Once you take that pressure to get banger after banger off, you realize that it actually gets easier. When you're relaxed, having fun, not stressing about results, you tend to get luckier. And not only luckier, it's more sustainable. If going out to do some street photography is relaxing and alleviates stress for you because it's fun, you're more likely to keep going. It's important to remember that while we do love this for the photos that we create, we also love it because of how being out there in the streets makes us feel. We're outside, we're getting some exercise, we're seeing the world and absorbing the energy of city life. Remember to enjoy it, even if you're not getting anything you're super proud of yet. Keep going, and you will. When you do, make sure you share it in my Discord, which you should be in. There's a link below. And above all else, stay hydrated and create art.